And it's time for Lefties Losing It, and let's check in with this charming lass. You know, she doesn't have to declare her politics. You know precisely how she votes.
I can help you talk to somebody.
He didn't use his turn signal!
Man, can I please call you an ambulance?
I do hope that is satire, but I think it's just another example of a lefty losing it. Now to the worst vice president we've had. Here is Kamala Harris being Kamala Harris.
And I was just telling somebody recently who didn't know, we performed Free to Be You and Me. When I sang about my friend William, who was 5 years old and wanted a doll to hug and hold, I could sing the whole thing.
I think you should sing some now.
She always seems a little over-refreshed, and we should know today is a special day. It's the anniversary of this great speech. The iconic coconut tree speech was shared by Kamala with the world. It was a gift, really, 2 years ago. How time flies when you're unburdened by what has been.
My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context.
Now, this is a delicious little clash. Here is Candace Owens owning Jason Lee.
Let's not conflate it with being black. Otherwise, you'd have to defend Rachel Dolezal.
Well, there's no. Well,
would you defend it?
Well, there's no defending crazy. That's crazy. But
why is that crazy?
Hold on. Because she was a white woman that says she was black.
Yeah, that's a man saying he's a woman.
But let's back up.
If you're gonna say that a man can just be a woman, why can't Rachel Dolezal just be black? You got to be consistent.
Because she's white.
Okay, because it's a man.
No, but hold on. I get it.
You know I'm right.
I get
you know
it.
I'm right.
No, I don't agree. And this is not a matter of right or wrong.
But it is.
Hold on.
This one is.
Let me tell you.
Why isn't Rachel Dolezal black?
Because she's a white woman.
Okay, because it's a male or it's a female.
You know.
Now to some Aussie lefty losing it action involving some loony left versus loony left hate and hyperbole. Yes, the feral left is turning on each other with Clementine Ford, who has in the past posted racial abuse about me and misogynistic abuse about other female conservatives. Kind of weird for a supposed women's rights campaigner, wouldn't you think? Well, she's now turned her attention on fellow far-left feminist simpleton Abbie Chatfield, who, when not promoting butt plugs, is slamming anything to the right of Joseph Stalin. Remember her very sane, very measured reaction when Donald Trump won in a landslide?
If you're a woman in Australia and you think the US election doesn't affect us, just know they now have permission to be outwardly sexist and support a rapist. Just know that. In your heart, know that they now have permission. They now think they are the majority, and they're so uneducated that they think that because they're the majority, they are right. They now have permission to be racist, transphobic. They have permission to laugh about our reproductive health and our reproductive freedom.
Well, if you can believe it, she's more unhinged now than back then, because her fellow leftist feminist, Mad Greenie, Clementine Ford, has criticised her for being shallow and profiting from the performance of being politically engaged and presenting herself as a voice of feminist and political authority. That's a direct quote. Strong words, and that had Abbie in an almighty meltdown. This is worse than when Trump won.
Stop lying about my character and my intentions. I get it enough from... Please stop dehumanizing me. Please, you can criticize my content, you can criticize my work, just I'm begging you to stop lying about my intentions and stop saying that I have a personality disorder. You don't know me. And this is so triggering. I just want her to stop.
Yes, no personality disorder there. And yes, you must not dehumanise those you disagree with, Abbie. What good advice. If only you thought of that when you said Conservative voters have no empathy and that it's a good thing that they're supposedly dying out.
We spoke to Adam Bant today on the radio show. Thank you, Adam. Loved you, loved talking to you. And I really am thinking that, or hoping, that in the next 10 or 15 years, as people who are voting for the Liberal Party literally die out and also metaphorically die out.
Literally die out, literally and metaphorically, pretty dehumanising, I would have thought. But let's get back to this left v left inspired meltdown, because of course you're the victim, always the victim.
Also, please, when I post about Palestine, stop using that as a reason to critique me more and say that I'm performative or whatever. Please stop discouraging me from posting about Gaza. It isn't working, but you're discouraging others. And you're encouraging trolling of me. Please, I'm just trying to do what I can to help. I don't understand why she's so adamant on proving that I'm awful. I don't get it.
This pity party did not stop there. The heart of it is the accusation from Abbie Chatfield that Clementine Ford is sending her leftist trolls after her. You know, something leftists always do, but though they love to dish it out, they're not so good at taking it.
Because I'm aware now of someone spreading malicious lies about me again and again and again and again and again because she claims to know my intentions on everything. I'm scared of her. Please stop. Clementine, I am begging you to stop. You don't know me at all. You're a stranger. I deal with so much every single day.
Oh, love, you should see what a conservative woman with a platform deals with every single day, including from the likes of you and Clementine Ford and your ill-informed, hate-filled hordes of lefty losers. We don't go crying about it. I say this genuinely. If it's affecting your mental health, then turn off your phone, log off, go for a walk. Don't do this.
I deal with insults every single day. I do not need it from you because you know that when you say it, you validate it for people on the left. And you are encouraging trolling, you are risking my safety and you are f***ing my mental health. Please stop.
Yes, abuse from the left is another level, Abbie, but let's not pretend you're not doing to Clementine Ford precisely what she's done to you, and that is sending your ill-informed, biofilled fans to troll her. Now, the fallout from Bernie Sanders' disastrous interview with Fox News' Brett Bauer continues. You know, the one where the global warming hysteric and socialist defended his use of private jets.
The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
Only problem is you're not in campaign mode. There's no election, Bernie, and you're not the leader of the Democrats or the candidate. You can line up at United with the rest of them, and you know you've gotten stuffed up when even CNN is mocking you.
Tell me what the moment was in that answer that you thought, oh, this is going wrong.
The United thing, because we all you're a man of the people. How dare I have to be with the people, right? That's what, look, it's a cheap question. It's a smart alecky question. So it wasn't a serious question. It was kind of trolly. But his answer was terrible. You can't defend this answer. Hey, buddy, we all have to stand in line. We all have to do this. Even if you have 1K privileges, you're still standing in line. You still have to do this. You got to go through security.
It definitely came across as I'm not going to stand in this line.
Chuck Todd, he can't help himself. He has to be a clown. How was that a trolly question? A socialist taking private jets across the country should not be held to account. Joining me now for more on this is Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, that was not a good performance from Bernie. And what campaign is he talking about? I mean, what sort of delusional situation has he got himself into?
The sweet addiction of private air travel is hard to give up. He's never going to give it up. We know we're all used to the hypocrisy with the climate hysterics, as you say, whether it's him or Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, Al Gore, who's the OG, or the hypocrisy of socialists like AOC and him. They just love the trappings of capitalism and the comfort of private air. So we know that. But I think the worst part for him was when he let the mask slip and show the superiority complex. Like, why should I stand in line with the little people? So much so that even Chuck Todd, even though he tried to throw a lifeline by criticizing the questioner, Brett Baier, he had to admit it, as you say. And he let the mask slip, and we're all here to see it.
That's it. And it's United. If he's too good for United, it's not like he's getting on Spirit Airlines. Now, that I would like to see. Now, a ceasefire of sorts in the tariff wars between the United States and China. They've agreed to a 90-day truce. And under this new agreement, the US will drop its 145% tariff on Chinese goods to 30%, while China is going to drop its 125% tariff to just 10%. This is quite the development, Kosha.
It is. Now, it is a stopgap measure because it's just a 90-day pause, not a resolution. So we've got a lot of wood to chop, but it's certainly a climb back down from the 145+%. The 30% on China is higher than historical averages, which used to be about 3%. Pre-Trump, and in his first term, he got to about 19%, so it's tougher than that. But he's tying it up with fentanyl and getting China to address the fentanyl crisis in some way, which is this whole China war is as much about that as it is about the trade deficit. So for now, on paper, at least, there seems to be alignment that they will do something about that, but we shall see.
But if we want to have a significant economic realignment, boost American manufacturing, end this reliance on China, particularly in so many crucial supply chains, it can't be this. It has to be something that is more impactful long term. So do you still think that's going to happen, or are we going to end up with something similar to this as the long-term
It's a big question because there's $600 billion in trade between the two countries, and he's trying to normalize that and equalize that. I think, we'll have to run the numbers on if the 30% holds and some of the supply chains recalibrate to Vietnam and other markets, like what does that do? But I think you're right that on the surface, to some people, it does feel like a little bit of a letdown compared to where the start was. But it could be that once you run the numbers and some of those recalibrations happen, it's moving the needle in the right direction, even if it's not a full saving grace.
And isn't it funny, all those Democrats who are obsessed about the share market fluctuations and the drops, they're not so obsessed now when the share market seems to be doing quite well. Now to some wonderful news with the release of Israeli-American Eden Alexander. The 21-year-old was held hostage by Hamas for more than 19 months. Kosha, the release is seen as a goodwill gesture towards the Trump administration in the hopes of laying the groundwork for a new ceasefire deal. How do you think that's going to work? Because we are hearing also about a rift between Netanyahu and the Trump administration.
Also a lot of wood to chop there. I think it is being pitched as that. He was the last American hostage that was held, so young, such heartwarming footage. It was fashioned to have him released before Trump's upcoming trip to the Middle East. That was done deliberately, so it's like a good backdrop on the eve of that. However, there is this rift. There's also a rift in the Republican Party that's getting deeper about the U.S.'s position with respect to Israel, and there are those who believe, it's their strongest ally, and nothing should be stopping how much the U.S. gives to support them in this quest and self-preservation and sovereignty. There is another part of the base that says, you do what you need to do, but we're not going to keep expending military power, financial power, and even diplomatic power to support Israel. And that faction seems to be ascendant, and Trump is really walking a tightrope in that. And then you overlay on that the personality clashes, supposedly, between him and Netanyahu. It's dicey, but I do think this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we are at a fascinating point because there's so many factors at play, and Iran is of course part of that equation. And Iran's exiled crown prince Reza Pahlavi has slammed Joe Biden and said that Donald Trump's pressure is the best chance of regime change in Iran. He told the New York Post that Biden's reversal of Trump's sanctions on Tehran emboldened the Islamist leadership. He said the Iranian people are trying to send this clear message to the outside world that if you want a true partner in peace, it is us who represent the alternative not this regime which has taken our country hostage in the first place 46 years ago and continues to do that. And it's not just taken Iran hostage, as we've discussed so many times, Kosha. It's the number one sponsor of terrorism in the region. And you can't really do anything meaningful and long-term about Hamas or whatever's going to pop up after Hamas without addressing the Iranian issue.
And he, the exiled prince, is the eldest son of the last Shah of Iran before the revolution. So he has important symbolic power or voice in this, and that he represents that point, that the people were very moderate and don't want this regime that's been presiding over them. It's also a very difficult topic, though, because, as he said, Biden emboldened them. That's one thing. Many argue that even George Bush with the war, the Iraq war, emboldened them because it created this imbalance and allowed Iran to seep out into the stop gate, at least, that Iraq in some way, not perfectly, but was putting against them. So there's many things over here. Again, the U.S. is very, very wary of getting involved in any way. I think Trump's favorite mechanism is economic pressure and sanctions and things like that. So I do expect to see him go hard on that. But how much that will bring to bear remains to be seen, because as the years tick by, this regime is getting more and more powerful, closer to nuclear weapons, and the picture just gets trickier. And
getting closer to China and Russia. It is a real balancing act for Trump in particular, because he was elected on a landslide on America First policies. They do not want to be involved in every war around the world. So there isn't an appetite to get involved in this. But they also have to acknowledge how destabilising Iran is, and as it's becoming more emboldened, particularly with its nuclear program. How does he sell this to the Republican base if he does need to have some sort of involvement and some sort of investment in regime change?
It's a tough one, and regime change is another thing. It's sort of become a dirty word in the U.S. because U.S. fingerprints are all over many regime changes, overtly and covertly, in the last half century. So I think that's a tough one. To the extent that he can describe it as it is stabilizing and that has repercussions back to things at home, as simple as gas prices, for instance, given their role there, or terrorism or security or things like that, then maybe there's a way in there. But just a straight up regime change, it's going to be a tough one.
Now to the Trump administration's war against Big Pharma, and I'll have more on this after the break. But Kosha, at its heart, this policy is to ensure these multi-billion-dollar companies are not price gouging in the US and charging exorbitant prices in the US compared to what they charge elsewhere in the world. RFK Jr. was there to trumpet this policy.
He can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich, who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President.
He has a point there, Kosha. Trump cannot be bought. He is the only president whose net worth actually dropped during his presidency. And I guess that's one of the perks of being a billionaire.
That's definitely one of his superpowers, as the kids say, because pharma is a very, very enriched and well-funded industry, and therefore there's a lot of lobbying dollars that flows into Washington, and that's made it a difficult nut to crack, and he's going to that. The other thing, too, is this strikes right at the heart of Trump's worldview, which is the U.S. has been ripped off by other countries for so long as it relates to trade deficits and tariffs, as it relates to underwriting security for the whole world. And this is a big pillar, the drugs, because the U.S. subsidizes drug R&D for the whole world. All the innovation, all the patents that's very expensive to attain happen there. And then just the way that the global markets are structured and export laws and all of that, they sell it at dirt cheap prices. Generics can become available in other countries, whereas the U.S. consumer has to pay 3 to 10 times as much, and that's what he's trying to undo here. But it'll be challenged in court and elsewhere, so we shall see how far it gets.
It's incredible. Like, they even are finding a reason to complain about this policy. You would think cheaper drug prices would be something they could embrace. Kosha Gator, thanks for your time.
Pleasure.